It's Sunday morning in Saigon, or Ho Chi Minh City as it's now known. On the surface, this could be any church service in North America. Even some of the choruses sung here are translated from English. But the similarities end there. This is another church in Saigon. The hidden camera shows government officials raiding the building and breaking up a service held by the Assemblies of God congregation. It wasn't the first time. The reason for the raid? Officials said those meeting didn't have permission to do so. In communist Vietnam, Christianity isn't illegal, nor is any religion. But what the law says and how it's practiced are often two different things. Just ask this man, Reverend Nguyen Hung Quang, a Mennonite pastor who's become a thorn in the flesh of Vietnam's ruling party.
What makes Pastor Quang so dangerous is what he knows. As a trained lawyer, he's challenged the government repeatedly on its violations of religious freedoms. He's not just speaking for himself, but for many other persecuted minorities.
In the last 20 years, he's been arrested repeatedly and imprisoned, slandered in newspapers, and followed by police. We're on his trail too, to get his side of the story and find out what's happening to the church in Vietnam. We've agreed to meet in a safe house in one of Saigon's busy neighborhoods.
Pastor Quang?
Yes. Thì họ theo dõi cũng hơn 20 năm rồi, nhưng mà giai đoạn này thì theo dõi nhiều hơn. Nghĩ chính quyền họ sợ tôi tổ chức biểu tình, chiếm lại đất.
On December 14th, 2010, an estimated 500 soldiers and police oversaw the demolition of a two-story building that was both the home of Pastor Quang and the headquarters of the Vietnam Mennonite Church. Though he did not resist the demolition, he was beaten unconscious when he objected to the arrest of 20 Bible school students.
Thì làm sao dân chúng sợ hãi, không sợ hãi. Sự thật ra chúng tôi cũng rất là kinh khủng. Dù là quen thuộc bị đánh đập nhiều lần nhưng mà chúng tôi cũng rất là kinh khủng trong cái chuyện mà người đang đi muốn đánh là đánh, muốn bắt đi là bắt, muốn ghép tội là ghép tội. Mình nghĩ không cho ở Việt Nam không có cái tự do tư tưởng và tự do ngôn luận. Mình nghĩ nó sự thật tình trạng hội thánh như thế hay tình trạng chính quyền sai như vậy. Mình nói ra sự thật là không có thích nghe, mình nói ra sự thật là bị nguy hiểm.
If anything, these events provoke Pastor Quang to speak even louder. He says his legal training has helped him to be a voice for those who can't speak for themselves.
Trước đây khi mà hội thánh bị bắt hại, nhân sự bị bắt bớ thì chúng tôi kéo mục sư tín đồ đến vai lên đồng công an yêu cầu phải trả tự do tức khắc. Thì hầu hết đều thành công.
Still, Pastor Quang has landed in jail on 7 occasions. Most recently in 2005. He credits that time as some of the best of his life, helping him not only to understand the conditions of prisons, but reach out to prisoners.
Cho nên những cái giây phút tôi điểm lại những giây phút trong tù là những giây phút tôi sung sướng nhất về cái sự tương giao. Năm 2005 thì cái buồng giam mà chống án của tôi là 100 người thì có 50 người tin Chúa.
Speaking out comes at a cost. He estimates there have been over 40 articles in the government-run newspapers slandering him as a religious imposter and threat to national security. What's worse, he says, are the ways they target his congregation and bring division.
Rồi họ gửi những cái thư nạc danh phát tán trong dân chúng và họ tung một lực lượng công an hàng trăm người để mà bám chặt những nhân.
It's what he calls cold persecution, a more subtle, scheming approach to sow division among the churches and stop their activities.
Cộng sản đàn áp kiểu cũ là bắt hại nóng, giật sập nhà thờ, bắt ở tù, chém giết thì cái đó nó giảm rồi. Nó áp lực ngoại giao và làm ăn buôn bán quốc tế, mở cửa thương mại, cái đó nó giảm.
And this is where the picture of religious freedom in Vietnam becomes unclear. As a single-party state, the government is ever present. Still, among the stars and sickles and portraits of communist hero Ho Chi Minh is another Vietnam, one that has wholeheartedly embraced commercialism. Tourism is one of the biggest injectors of this emerging economy. and the billions it brings in has caused the state to work on its image. A 2004 U.S. State Department report on human rights practices cited Vietnam's poor record on freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of association. In recent years, Vietnam has done better, thanks in large part to a government initiative to register Christian churches and denominations.
Well, the government of Vietnam made a very concerted effort to get off of the U.S. State Department list of countries of particular concern. They made a very public showing of, look, we're making progress, look, it's different now. They wanted not to be on that list, and it worked. They're no longer considered a country of particular concern.
But Todd Nettleton and Greg Musselman are concerned. As representatives of Voice of the Martyrs in the U.S. and Canada, they travel the world to document cases of Christian persecution. This means going directly to the source.
I'm very impressed with
Musselman says religious persecution is ongoing, albeit more hidden.
To the outside world, you get this understanding that, hey, things are not so bad in Vietnam, but when you're actually in the country, you start to talk to the believers, you realize that the persecution is still there.
Which brings us back to this video. This is an unregistered church, which makes it illegal. According to Pastor Quang, government registration of churches is the new frontier in the battle for freedom of religion.
Cấp pháp nhân nó không đồng nghĩa với được tự do. Vì những người cấp pháp nhân cũng phải đi xin phép tổ chức lễ Giáng sinh, hay là cấp pháp nhân rồi muốn thụ phong mục sư cũng phải viết lý lịch xin phép chính quyền cho phép mới thụ phong của người đó. Như vậy là cấp pháp nhân là một cái là đưa cái đầu vào rọ bị siết thêm. Đó là thực tế nó như vậy, chứ cũng không khá hơn.
Pastor Quang and his church have no plans to register with the government, and they are in the process of rebuilding what was destroyed. He plans on continuing his fight for freedom through legal means, and, most of all, through prayer.
Chúng tôi biết rằng là khi thi hành chức vụ, chúng tôi hiểu rõ rằng là phải đi con đường hẹp, con đường thập tự, không có cãi với Chúa, không có chống cự. Và khi mà một chính quyền mà họ dùng bạo lực, tức là họ đã thất bại.
Tomorrow on 100 Huntley Street, we'll talk to those who faced violence at the hands of the government and find out why they're willing to risk their lives to share their stories and faith with others.